Welcome back, Arian. I am happy to have you. Thank you for talking with us initially about the beginning of All Things Mommy, the community that you've built, what vulnerability and mentorship look like. And I'm excited that we're going to be digging deeper into partnership and how that spans such a broad spectrum of all things mommy. So I'd love to kick it to you so that you might share with us how partnership transpires between different relationships in our lives.
Thanks, Ariana. Um, Partnership, I think people think of or view partnership as just like a one size. And so when you think of partnership, you're not really thinking about, your home life, your work life, your friend life, like all these things. And so partnership for me, um, it's stretched in so many lanes. So I'm partnered with my kids' school because I want to be involved in all the things. I'm partnered with my husband. I'm partnered with, our family when we're thinking about who's picking up this child, who is dropping this child off. And so being able to partner is such a huge need, but then also something that, don't expect yourself to know what you're doing when you first get started. So like when you first get married, you think, okay, this is easy. That first year is like the honeymoon phase. And then you get to like year three, and it's like, oh, do we have a shared calendar? Like, what does partnership really look like for you and I? And then you bring in these kids, and then you bring in, your in laws, and just all the things. So, I love the power of partnership because the the more I grow, the tighter my partnership is across the board. So, for example, um, motherhood comes with such a huge load, and sometimes you just want to check out. Like, I don't want to do the calendar today. I don't want to wake up and take this kid to school and make sure that everybody gets where they need to go. So I think just honoring that, sometimes partnership looks very different, but also, just knowing how to communicate, when you need to, when you need help, when you need to check out. And so for our home life, we really, really hone in on like the calendar. So every Sunday, my husband and I, we sit and talk about what we have going on for the week. And so that I'm mentioning that relationship because I mean it's the most important to communicate for, but then also it spills into everything else. So we communicate about, what's important this week, who has what bills need to get paid, all the things. And so we just go down the list. And so when we have a really productive Sunday, I recognize that we have a really productive week. So
Mhm.
for anyone that's listening, my husband and I, we have a food truck. We also have a catering business. And so a lot of times food is the most important on the weekends. And so a few years ago, we took away working on Sundays. And sometimes we work on Sundays. It's very few times. Or if it's something that's like, for example, All Things Mommy, Mom's Giving, I chose Sunday because that is typically the day that my husband is off work. But for the most part, we don't work on Sundays. We are really pouring into our household and our kids and each other. And so we talk about, the week ahead of us. We do movies, we do, football, all the things. And so I'm watching football, and that's really not my thing. But like, I'm really partnering with my husband to give
Mhm.
him time as well as the kids. Um, but when we talk about, just like the calendar for the week, our kids are, and this isn't probably the norm, but our kids are in 3 or 4 different locations every single day. And so when we talk about, who is taking who where, what do you need for the week? What do you need for the week? That's something that's really important. So we've learned to ask each other, how are you feeling? What do you need? And so again, like I said, that spills over into our children and how their week is. And so we're thinking of, now we're spilling into work life. And so, yeah, Ariana, now I'm rambling.
I think I'm gonna take it back to the sentence before you just said that. That was perfect. I like that you say though that you have to show up in different ways and communicate that. One of our cousin-in-laws or out whatever that relationship is through marriage, they were talking about this book that, I think it's called 80/20, and talking about
Mhm,
how partnership is not always 50/50, that there is 100% of the pie, but sometimes somebody's carrying 80%, sometimes somebody's pulling their 20%, and recognizing when one of you needs more support or when one of you is leaning more is
mhm.
so key. What do those conversations look like at home with your spouse when you're communicating, "I need a little more support," or "I have more bandwidth, what can I take off of your plate?" What does that look like for you guys?
Love that question. So, I mentioned that we are in the food industry. There are different times of the year where catering is just really, really busy.
Mhm,
And there are different times of the year where compliance is really, really busy. And then there are different times of the year where our kids are all in a sport and everybody needs to go four different places.
mhm,
So I would just say sometimes we don't even see each other until it's time to go to bed. And so making sure that those Sundays, making sure that like our communication to each other is really like, how are you feeling? How can I support you? What
mhm,
needs to shift? What needs to change? And so even if, the day is long, the week is long, we need to make sure that we're having those conversations because your partner or whomever you are partnering with for whatever task, like they could be at the breaking point or they could just be to the point where it's just like, I just need support, I just want to scream. And so you never want to get to that point.
mhm,
So just making sure that we're asking each other how we can support each other. It might feel like you're pushing play near the radio, but I mean, realistically, like we're here to support each other. So some days, it is 80/20.
mhm,
What when you don't feel good and you still have that catering gig, you still have to show up for that audit that's due today.
mhm.
But have those littles over here, they're like, hey, what about me? Like I still need dinner.
Right.
So those days can be really hard. But that's when, tapping into each other and saying, hey, what can you afford to do today, and what do I need to take away from your workload? So